is Dr. Bill Bailey, and this is VirtZine, the online magazine of virtualization and cloud computing. We are proud members of the Tech Podcast Network, techpodcast.com. If it's tech, it's right here on the VirtZine Netcast, and we're going to be talking about some really important things this week on the VirtZine Netcast. We got some neat stuff to talk about. One is not so neat, and that is a security vulnerability in Citrix receiver. Now, this was released on September the 12th, so it's a little bit old news. But if you're not aware, you need to update the Citrix receiver to the latest version, and or if you're using the Citrix Online plugin, the old legacy online plugin, be sure to update to 12.3 of that plugin, because there is a security vulnerability that is pretty serious, and you really need to take care of that. So I encourage you to do that as quickly as you can. All right. Another item here, we have Amazon AWS, which stands for Amazon Web Services, announces Amazon Glacier backup. Glacier, kind of neat, like frozen in a glacier. Amazon Glacier is a secure, reliable, and extremely low-cost storage service designed for data archiving and backup. The service is designed to archive data that is infrequently accessed, such as digital media archives, historical, financial, and healthcare records, raw genomic sequence data, long-term data backups, and any data that must be retained for regulatory compliance. Customers can reliably and durably store large or small amounts of data for as little as 1 penny per gigabyte per month. That's pretty good. So check into that. Also, again, some of these are older announcements, but still things we need to cover for the netcast. VMware released vSphere 5.1. And as I said, this was announced during VMworld. Excuse me while I get something to drink there because my throat was getting rough. Hate that. vSphere 5.1 is out, and here's a rundown of the new features and info. There is now a vSphere web client. Now, those of you that manage vSphere, as I do, you're familiar with the vSphere regular client that you install, what we might call the FAT client that you install on your Windows box to manage vSphere. And you can see the whole cluster, you can see the hosts and so forth, and manage it that way. Well, they've come out now with a web client. Now, here's the important thing about this web client. First of all, it is Flash-based, so you have to have a browser that supports Flash. And we're talking real Flash here, not, like Chrome that has a version of Flash built in. I think it's called Pepper Flash. It's kind of a subset. You need the full-blown, true Adobe Flash in order to, excuse me, throat's really getting rough. I cut out the whole coughing fit there because that was no fun, particularly for me. So anyway, that's why we had a little blip. I cut all that out. So the thing about this new web client is it requires full-blown Adobe Flash. So you have to download Adobe to be able to run the new web client. Now, the important thing about this is the new web client for vSphere will be for an ongoing basis will be the new client. They're going to cease development on the old FAT client. So you really need to start planning on moving to this new web client. Now, down the road, some folks at VMware told me recently that they are planning to eventually move away from Flash and probably go with HTML5, but HTML5 is still not quite settled down enough yet for the web client to be based on that. So I'm looking forward to that day because, everybody's kind of moving away from Flash. Even Adobe is even moving away from Flash. So hopefully that will, be available down the road. vSphere vMotion. They're going to allow vMotion without shared storage. That is pretty amazing. Now, obviously, it will be slower than if you have shared storage, but it will allow you to move virtual machines, migrate between hosts or clusters that do not share storage together. That's pretty impressive stuff. They're also going to have the vCenter single sign-on service, a newly introduced service that enables support for authentication against multiple identity sources at the same time, including Active Directory and Open LDAP. So that's going to be really cool. Throat's still a little rough, so bear with me. vCenter inventory tagging now supports tagging of the inventory. Tags can be created and assigned to one or more vCenter objects as a grouping mechanism. vCenter performance optimizations. Significant performance improvements have been achieved. For example, in the area of vCenter statistical data, no matter how large your environment is, you'll no longer encounter performance issues creating, rolling, or purging stats. No matter which stats level you choose to use, stats get rolled up in minutes as opposed to hours, irrespective of the granularity or level of the roll-ups. That's pretty cool. Hardware accelerated 3D graphics for desktop virtualization environments on select NVIDIA GPUs. Clients can use hardware graphics acceleration. Major improvement to console access protocols for better performance over the WAN. Auto deploy has been enhanced to support both stateless caching and stateful installs of images on local storage. The purpose of this feature is to provide a level of availability in the case that the network is not available and hosts cannot connect to the auto deploy server. Host profiles have been extended to support additional configuration values, so there's enhancements there. VMware hypervisor and virtual machine capabilities have been expanded. The expansion of VM scale limits to support VMs up to 64 vCPUs and 1 terabyte of memory per guest. That's just crazy. So, I mean, 64 vCPUs. Wow. Anyway, VMware Tools upgrade can avoid reboots in most classes of upgrades. Now, basically what they're saying is this next version of VMware Tools, once you install that version, then it will no longer require a bounce of the guest to reinstall the tools. That's the hope. We'll see how well that goes. But I applaud their efforts to do that, because it is not easy sometimes on production machines to take the guest down when you're doing a tool upgrade. So that will be, to me, a big benefit, at least. Extended VMware Tools support going back to ESX 3.5. Windows 8 Server and Desktop supported as a guest OS. Which, you know, Windows 8 of course is coming out, so server and desktop will be supported now. Improved security and auditability of local user access. Addition of SNMP version 3 support. There'll be storage enhancements in version 5.1. Space efficient sparse disk for view deployments. Improved all pass down handling. Storage protocols, 16 gigabit fiber channel support, boot from software, fiber channel over Ethernet, iSCSI jumbo frame support, I/O device management, diagnosis of various storage protocol issues, and SSD solid state drive monitoring. VAAI enhancements enable array-based snapshots to be used for vCloud Director fast provision vApps, and then vSphere networking delivers more enterprise class functionality and more robust foundation for cloud computing. Lots and lots of enhancements and really good stuff. So 5.1 is going to be awesome. I mean, it's been released, but you probably, like if you're like me, you haven't put it out there in the real world yet. We're letting some more people be cutting edge before we throw it out there, if you know what I mean. All right. Another item here, Emodio has released the new Flex Plus VDI user customization. Emodio, I guess is the way you pronounce this. I always say Emodio, but it's Emodio. They have the Flex framework, which allows customization of profiles. And they have been known, particularly in the Citrix world, for a long, long time. Of course, I manage Citrix as well as VMware. And they have come out with a new version, particularly aimed toward VDI. So that's pretty impressive. And speaking of Citrix, last item here, the latest version of XenServer 6.1 is getting aggressive in their competition against VMware. They have designed 6.1 with cloud computing in mind, and they built in a lot of tools to allow you to convert from VMware to XenServer. XenServer has some pricing advantages in that they're much cheaper than VMware, but they've been a bit behind the curve in terms of tools that are available for managing the guests and managing the environment. So they're really ramping up in that area and really coming up to speed and becoming very aggressive in their competition with the VMware. So that's really good news. I mean, it is good news, because anytime you have really tight competition like that, the entire industry and customer base, I believe, benefits on both sides, because that competition drives them to innovate, and that's a good thing. They also, I notice here, are coming out with shared nothing storage migration with the new storage ZenMotion technology that lets IT move freely running VMware machine or virtual machines, VMware machines, a little slip of the tongue there, virtual machines without the need for shared storage. So interesting, they come out with this right on the heels of 5.1 coming out with the same feature. Lots of new features in XenServer 6.1, so I encourage you to check that out. I actually have downloaded, I'm going to experiment with 6.1 and see if there are use cases in my environment for it, although we are heavily committed to VMware where I work, so we'll see. But I like to experiment with new technologies, and I'll let you know my impressions of it as I try it. So I just wanted to share some of these things with you and encourage you to keep your head in the cloud.